Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, the book club, covering The We Free Men by Terry Pratchett. In this episode, Bitches and I discuss a delightful female protagonist that I didn't know I needed in my life. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
And I'm Bitches.
And thank you for joining me here this evening. And throwing down for this book, even though it was only like 2 weeks out when I released the book club list for 2018.
I lucked out because this happens to be one of my favorite books in the world. I've read it, no kidding, like 7 or 8 times.
Yay!
I just re-listened to the audiobook in preparation for this, and I didn't get to listen to the last hour, and I'm not even worried, because I'm pretty sure I know it by heart.
Yeah, this was a book that I went into with nothing. Like, there are some that I have even the vaguest idea of what's coming, and the only thing that I knew was the title and that what that probably meant. And it's, you know, the Nack McFeagles are not the main characters. Nope. So that it's still, despite having that little piece of information, it was not entirely accurate either. But
had you ever read any Terry Pratchett at all before this?
Terry Pratchett, did he co-write Good Omens?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, then that's the only other thing I think.
We're not prepared for the Discworld.
No. Discworld is one of those series that has been on my list of possible, like, series to cover. And whenever I bring it up, people are really cagey about it. Mm-hmm. Because there's so much of it. And yeah, so I've just always kind of been, and when this book got put on the what do you call it? It was Jamie Smith, who hosts the Vampire Diaries and Lost podcast. She made the lists of poll options for the book club, which the patrons voted on. And I didn't even look through some of it before she had done it. And I was not aware that this was even part of a series. And how many more are there?
Okay, so there's 2 more that I count, and then one more official one after that I don't count for reasons that are kind of sad, and then one more after that I'm pretty sure Terry didn't even write.
Okay.
So background on the author. Terry Pratchett was totally a way prolific author for 30, 40 years, right? Wrote literally 50 Discworld books and a couple other series. And then about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Mm.
Yeah, and there came a point where you could tell that his books were no longer completely him, right? There came a point where you could tell that someone was ghostwriting with him because his voice is so unique and it's so
distinctive.
That's the word. Thank you. It's so incredibly distinctive that any variation from that voice is very obvious. So, in fact, that's kind of why Good Omens is so brilliant because, yeah, you can kind of tell the places where it's Neil and some of the places where it's Terry if you know the 2 authors very well, but it does blend very well so that it comes together into a cohesive voice. But, yeah, so anyway, the 2 next books that I count as canon. The next one is Hatful of Sky, And then the one after that is called Wintersmith.
Okay.
And then, again, there's a fourth one that I thought I was being too judgmental about it, and then I gave it to a friend who is also very into Terry Pratchett in the Discworld.
Okay.
And he read it, and he looked at me afterward and said, I'm sorry that happened to the both of us. And I'm like, okay, I worried that it was just me. He's like, no, that doesn't count. I don't know what the fuck happened to that book, but it wasn't Sir Terry. It's like, okay. And we had known for a couple of years at that point that he had Alzheimer's, so it was like, okay, so at least we have a reasonable explanation for what happened, because this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's a shame. Like, I haven't really... There's been no one particular author that I have followed so obsessively through their career that was actually alive when things started to go downhill for them. Like, the closest that I had is getting very attached to the Chronicles of Narnia by the 6th book, and then reading the 7th one, which I believe wasn't finished by C.S. Lewis. I think it was a son or cousin or somebody. And realizing, like, oh, this is way darker than what he normally does. I don't care for this at all. What's happened?
Was that the last battle? I didn't
Yeah.
even know that. I thought it was weird that he, like, that at the end they, like, threw Susan under a bus and, like, what the fuck was up with that?
Yeah, it was very, it just felt so much more puritanical overall than the whole rest of the series, and it hit so many wrong notes for me. But, you know, that was over and done with by the time I got around, and I feel like seeing that happen in real time would be a massive bummer.
It was heartbreaking. And then when he actually did die, like, the entire nerd world went into mourning.
Yeah.
Like, I sat here and cried. Because it was like losing my moral grandpa. Like, seriously, reading the Discworld books taught me everything that I know about good morality.
Aw. That's sweet.
It's sweet and depressing. Anyway, but back to the book. Well, actually, this book is kind of a prime example of that. Can you see how, like, a person can read this and start to think about the way they operate in the world and how they can be doing better for not just, like, themselves, but for their community, and taking maybe some of their less desirable character traits, like the tendency to eavesdrop or be jealous, and turning those into a positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I posted a little while ago on Facebook that around Christmas time, I downloaded a bunch because I had all of these Audible credits, and I decided to use them on old childhood favorites, and one of them was A Little Princess. And I wasn't sure how it would hold up because I hadn't listened to A Little Princess in probably almost 20 years. I hadn't read it or seen the movie or anything. And the things that I like about Tiffany Aching are very much things that I like about Sarah Crewe. The whole deal, and once I reread A Little Princess, it became very obvious where certain aspects of my personality really came from, because both of these girls are written as being incredibly self-aware and being really observant of what's going on and what's likely going on based on what they're seeing, and stepping back and going, well, do I think this because this? Am I angry because I'm angry at them, or am I angry at myself? And am I a good person really? Is that why I'm doing the right thing? Or am I doing the right thing for reasons completely outside of that it is the right thing to do? And I find that to be way more compelling and way less... It's just so much rarer to find in books that are geared towards children. And I think it's a really valuable perspective, and I think there's this tendency in a lot of authors to underestimate an audience and think that they can't keep up. And just give people some credit and write, like, really do it. And I really liked that. Tiffany was just, right out of the gate, so much more thoughtful and capable and grounded than I expected for somebody who was going to be in this wild story. And it was just a breath of fresh air. I'm delighted with this whole story. I thought it was so much fun.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. I really, but no, I completely agree with you 100%. As much as I do love me some like Harry Potter and all the other wonderful children's literature that I, let myself indulge in, a lot of the time the kids just aren't very self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you don't explain to children that they can be self-aware, they're never going to learn.
Yeah.
And this does it just so beautifully. It like teaches kids to think about how they think.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I want to give it to every small child and every adult I've ever met. It's just, I gave it to my mom. My mom read it and she's like, "Can I have the next book now?"
Yeah, I credit a lot of the reading that I did as part of like why I had any self-awareness. And God knows I didn't have as much as I do now, but I think I had more than a lot of children.
Well, most kids aren't very self-aware. They are pretty much raised to be
the opposite of that.
Yeah, selfish, self-involved without like really thinking about that or why it's important.
Which I'm sure I still was. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're still kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. It's like even the most self-aware kid in the universe is still going to be a selfish little shit sometimes because they have to. It's a survival mechanism.
Yep. So, all right. So this, to basically summarize the overall plot of this book, Tiffany Aching is a young girl. What is she, like 10? 9?
She's 9. She's 9 in this.
And she has this kind of awful baby brother who is spoiled rotten, and he gets abducted by an evil witch who...
No. Not witch. Queen.
And she has to go and find him, and she unexpectedly gets the help of the Nakmacfeagles, who are Pixies, which is the best thing that I've ever heard.
Yeah, not pixies, guys. Pixies.
They're little, fierce, blue-painted men with red hair who like to fight and steal and fight and drink and steal and fight.
Yep.
Are their main things they like to do. And
Scottish accents.
Okay, have you listened to the audiobook for this?
I absolutely have.
Listen. I could not stop laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. One of my favorites is just the way they say the Quinn.
Yeah, the Quinn.
You got to stay away from the Quinn. The Quinn will have him. Like, the whole... I am really thankful that when I was a kid, one of my favorite books was called Quest for a Maid. And it was set in Scotland. And the way that they spoke, there was a whole glossary in the back of the book to translate, basically. And so I really got a hang of it early on. And when I would watch movies and stuff where people had strong accents, my mother would often have trouble, and I'd have to tell her what they were saying because I really could hear it and understand. But I don't know what I would have done listening to this audiobook if I didn't have that background, because he does that accent thickly. He isn't kidding around.
So it's written really thickly. If you go to the text and look at it, it's the first time I read it, like, God, it had to be at least more than a decade ago. The first time I read it, I really couldn't fucking understand them. Like, you read it and, like, I would read it aloud just to try and get some of it, and that helped a lot, but it's like, Crivens! What you doing? Don't ash yourself! And it's like, oh, okay, some of these are archaic words, and some of it is just, like, really thick Scottish. Once I figured out that it was Scottish, I could get a handle on it. Now I'm pretty sure I know what they're saying 99% of the time. But yeah, first couple of times reading it was like, motherfuck, what the?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
I could definitely see that. Like like I said, I understood out the gate what they were saying, and I was like, oh shit. And then when Tiffany's like, man, I don't even know how, like, I'm probably getting about half of what they're saying. Yeah. I was like, oh, you know what? I think I have a tiny bit of an advantage, but this would probably be really hard. And that's just so much of what makes it so funny. It's just the combination of just the way they phrase things and the attitude that they have, combined with her not knowing what they're saying and having to get translations from her toad friend.
I'm not finishing myself, am I?
I would hate to think I'm doing that in front of everyone. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just so delightful. It's so wonderfully delightful, and I just cannot get over it. Not ever.
So what kind of sets everything into motion here? Like, we have Miss Tick, who is a witch who is doing some, she's exploring the universe. And
she's
yes.
The universe.
And she can tell by the pricking of her elbows that there is a witch nearby, but for some reason she feels like witches can only grow on rock, or at least clay, and not chalk.
That's a different thing. Something about the hardness of the stone around you.
Okay.
Witches. Most witches come from the Ramtop Mountains, which is a mountain range on the Discworld. You don't get many witches originating from the Slolat Plains, which are plains where they grow cabbages, or from Morpork, which is the big city. So, like, yeah, most of the witches come from these high mountains, so they automatically assume that you need hard stone to grow witches. And chalk is, chalk. It's a soft thing to have as your earth, and therefore she thinks, no, that couldn't possibly happen. Can't have a witch on chalk.
That's so funny. I really enjoy that weird idea. And it's like, well, witches are like plants, and you just need a certain soil. Whatever, it's no big deal.
Yeah, it's like, thought everyone knew that. Duh.
And so she's preoccupied with this, and Tiffany is, meanwhile, with her shitty baby brother, Wentworth.
Yep.
And they are down by the river, and she sees the Nakmekfeagles not knowing anything about them or what they are. And one of them yells at her about how there's a green head.
Yep.
And something comes up out of the water and tries to grab Wentworth's. And she is like, gee, wonder what that is. Maybe I'll use Wentworth as bait to find out more about this creature, which is amazing. That was really where I started to like Tiffany immediately.
Oh, God. I liked her from the first line, where it's like, her name was Tiffany, and she wasn't too certain about that name. It's like, I feel you, girl. Mm-hmm. Oh, God, I feel you. I've got one of those stupidly feminine and ornate names, too, and it's just like, oh, man.
What is it again? Are you going to tell everybody?
Oh, God. My name is Crystal Dawn. Yes, folks, I'm either a stripper or a gift to her. Oh, God, what the fuck was my mom thinking? I'm supposed to be kidnapped by a dragon or some shit. I can't with this name, so that's why we go by bitches.
Yep, that is fair. Yeah, so Tiffany is pretty... Ruthless isn't the right word. She's incredibly practical, and she has a lot of confidence in her own abilities at times. So, like, she's somebody would be like, well, what if something happens to him? And I feel like Tiffany's answer would be like, nothing's going to happen to him. I'm right here. Yeah. Like, and kind of an irritation. What's that?
And also, like, whatever if something happens to him.
That as well. I cannot discount that part.
Yeah. I don't think she would have done it if she liked him more.
That's probably true.
Yeah. But anyway.
And probably, there just comes a point where, even if it's not about whether you want something to happen to him or not, I could see just wanting him to get scared and enjoy that a little bit. And it's kind of frustrating because once Jenny Greenteeth comes up out of the water, he's not even scared. He's like still yelling about how he wants candy. And it's just like not effective. One-track mind.
Well, he is a tiny, tiny child and not super self-aware or aware of anyone else except for his own wants and needs, which are apparently for sweeties and to go to the toilet.
Yes.
Which, to be fair, when you're 3 or 4, I mean, really, what else is there?
Nah, that's fair.
What been taught is the most important thing in the world.
There's going to come a point where that's going to be all of our priorities all over again. You start out that way, and then you get old enough that you become that way all over again.
Shut up.
I'm sorry.
As someone somewhat, I'm older than you, and it's getting closer, and I'm just like, I'm not prepped. Like, still, the diaper time is like a good 30 years off, but like, 30 years isn't what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. They be flying lately. I tell you, my friends, time just goes faster every year.
Yeah, I was talking to my mom about this and about how I saw getting older when I was young, and really thought by the time I reached a certain age that I would be okay with it. That, like, it didn't occur to me that I wouldn't mentally feel older and be like have come to terms with it. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that I'm here now and I'm suddenly like, wait a minute, I'm way past the age I think I am. I constantly still think of myself as like late 20s, and I'm 33, and I probably am going to continue to think of myself as late 20s for another like 7 years minimum. And I always expected that getting older wouldn't be so bad because I'd be ready for it. And that's just not how it is. The time just starts to go too quickly and you don't realize it's happening. And then you catch sight of yourself and you're like, wait, what is that in the mirror there? Wait a second.
Mm-hmm. I recently got a new position at my job, and my boss is younger than I am. He's a vice president in the company, and he's a little bit younger than me. And he didn't know because I bathe in the blood of virgins like once a month, whether I need it or not. So I mean, I'm still doing pretty good, and people can't tell that I'm 37. But like we were talking in his office one day about like we're rolling out new software and what can reasonably be expected of all age groups to be able to pick up quickly and use, and what terminology we're allowed to use because some of our clients are in their 70s. And so he's like, can we say that? I'm like, okay, I think you and I are the last of the we're the oldest people on this end of it and the youngest people on this end of it. So we're kind of the dividing line. And he's like, wait a minute, what are you saying? I'm like, oh, David, I'm older than you. And he's like, no, you're not. It's like, oh, yes, I am. Yeah, it turns out he's like, you're not that much older than me. It's like a hot 4 years, but he's a vice president and I am not. So, it's like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I cuss. Oh, wait, my name's Bitches. Everyone knows that. So, yeah.
You're on Unspoiled. I think it's, everybody knows that's a given.
I certainly hope so. Guys, then, say a little prayer afterward, you'll be fine. But, yeah, it's this thing where, like, when you're 9, like Tiffany, and time just fucking drags, and you're never gonna be an adult.
Yep.
Everything seems very, very slow. And then you get a little bit older, like, seriously. Well, okay, at the time it seemed to take 10 million years, but now you blink and all of a sudden you're pushing 40 and nothing fits the same way and your body's changing again.
Yeah. Dumb bodies. Pick something and stay. God.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, that was a really depressing little segue. So sorry, everybody.
Okay,
but,
everyone go do a shot.
Right? And take your shots.
Yeah. Take your vitamins and wash them down with a glass of Merlot.
So have you read Dresden Files?
I've read, I think, the first 3 books. They were
Okay.
not funny. Or at least, I've heard, I have a problem with them. My problem is that he calls that city Chicago, and it's not fucking Chicago.
Oh my God, who cares? Get over it. Really? What is the matter with you? That's the thing you can't get past?
Have you ever lived someplace that had so much personality it was like a friend?
No.
Because that's Chicago. Chicago is that kind of town. And yeah, just him getting random details wrong. It's like, stop talking about Jenny!
Well, he wrote it set somewhere else, and then they were like, no, that won't work. You need to say it's Chicago. And he was like, all right, I guess.
I heard that later, and it made me feel better about it. But I also just, like, the stories just weren't for me. The thing where it's constant action with no introspection just, like, doesn't do it for me.
See, I don't feel like that's how they are. I think there's a ton of introspection. But I think maybe some of that comes further on in the series.
That's probably it. So I'll give another book another go and see how it goes, but not today. Probably not tomorrow.
Well, the character of Jenny Greenteeth pops up in the 4th book.
Oh, wow.
And I did not know that she was like a folk character. I thought she was an invention of his. And this delighted me that she's in this. And I was like, oh shit, this might be just, a folk tale. But it never occurred to me, which is silly because like so much of what he does is taken from other stories. But yeah, Tiffany defends her brother with a frying pan.
An iron frying pan.
Yeah. So Jenny is from Fairy, and they cannot abide the touch of cold iron. And it is a very effective weapon. And it pretty much attracts the attention of Miss Tick, who's like, oh. And Tiffany goes to her with, what was it, an egg, right? Because she trades things for her education.
Right. So in their town, they'll have traveling educators come by like once a quarter or so, and just kind of set up tents, and you can trade various foodstuffs for some education. So you can get like half an hour of geography for like 3 carrots and a turnip, and an egg is big money. Totally big money. So she goes and sees a couple teachers about some stuff, and then she ends up in Miss Tick's tent, and is like, so what are you teaching? And her sign says, a lesson you won't forget in a hurry.
I love that.
I would absolutely go to that tent.
Right.
Really fast.
So Miss Tick, basically is like, so, I listened in and spied and whatever, and I can tell that you, like, want to be a witch. I'm not gonna teach you. And if I were, one of the first things I would tell you is that witches don't use magic very much because it's a pain in the ass, it's difficult to control, and it's really just not fucking necessary if you use your head at all. Just think for, like, that will set you apart from most people right there. And the magic part is very, very secondary, and most people just don't want to hear that because that's no fun. Which is sort of where Tiffany lands initially. It's just like, well, come on, though. That's not fun.
the use of being a witch if you can't just wave your hands and, have
Yep.
shit happen? Like, what's the fucking point? And that's one of the things Terry does throughout all of his books about witches, because there is a whole series within the Discworld that are just about the adventures of various witches. Mostly Granny Weatherwax, because she's the best and she's my favorite and she's my secret grandma. Anyway, but yeah, the whole thing about it is like the first thing you learn about magic is how not to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the more powerful you are, the less magic you ever have to actually use, because you can just be smarter about things and get it done that way. And it's oh god, it's everything I want in a fantasy book. It's like, yeah, magic's great and all, and sometimes you need it, but seriously, sort out your shit. Like, just
Yep.
do work, guys.
Yeah, I really, like, this is part of what made me, like, immediately be like, oh my god, I'm so on board for this. I just, not that I don't love the whole magic aspect, too, because of course I do, but that is what makes you realize that a character and a story is going to be more interesting, because the author isn't going to rely on the magic for the story, which is
Exactly.
always going to be the least interesting part in the end. It's going to be the most fun initially, but if you don't put any boundaries on it, it gets to the point where anything can happen, which like kind of it's
Invalidates the suspense.
yeah, and it's I feel like that's something that sounds like kind of an oxymoron, that like, oh, having too many possibilities makes it dull, but it just boundaries help.
Exactly. And yeah, one of the quotes from one of the other witch books is something like, I'm just going to quote off my head, the stars don't care what you wish. The stars don't care what you wish. Magic doesn't make things better. And if you want to learn anything about being a witch, you need to learn 3 things first. What's real, what's not, and what's the difference.
Yeah.
And, I've read all those books like 6 or 7 times too. Anyway. And it kind of comes down to a different thing. For Terry Pratchett's world, what being a witch is about isn't about doing magic. It's about taking care of your community, even when that means manipulating them sometimes.
Right.
So, and it's just like, they are so fun. If you ever have time in your life again, I urge you to go and read more of the witch books from the Discworld, and I can send you a list if you want. The other ones are fabulous too, but the witch ones are so special.
Yeah, I would. I'm like, again, feeling like I want to have this be a bit of a series, but also just kind of want to read for fun, for a change.
Yeah.
Just sometimes I just want to do something for me. That's all I'm saying.
You didn't hear me say, hey, if you want a podcast about them more. I said, hey, although if you did want a podcast about them more,
No, obviously, yes.
But yeah, so Tiffany goes and she gets her egg's worth of education, and Miss Tick pretty much tells her, it's like, okay, so there is a school for witches, and I'm going to tell you some arcane shit that doesn't make any sense about how you find it. You go up to the highest hill, and you open your eyes, and then you open your eyes again. And Tiffany's like, well, what the fuck does that mean? And Miss Tick's like, I guess you'll see, whatevs. Okay, let's talk about what's happening in your land. And they talk about it for a minute. And Miss Tick is like, okay, so, it feels like the Queen of the Fairies is kind of rubbing up her world against your world, because there's no one here to stop her, because you guys don't have a witch. And this is bigger than me, so I need you to sit tight, and I'm going to go get some backup.
Yeah. This was, again, I was just like, what is this? Like, it can just rub up against your world. All right, I guess that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, so I completely buy this, because for me, sometimes the world does seem a bit thin, and like surreal shit is going to start happening at any moment.
Yeah.
And then we have a Trump presidency, and I feel like the Queen is taking over our land.
Listen, don't talk about it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm just saying, did not snow appear on the ground as if by magic?
Oh, God. I just...
Do you see any dromes around? Because I do.
Oh, my God. You know what? I actually meant to ask. Can anyone... Like, is Tiffany able to see the Knack McFeagles because of being a witch? Is that, like... Or is it just that she uses an ability that everyone really has, but nobody bothers to work on?
So they aren't invisible even a little bit. They're just super fast and usually don't want to be seen by humans. They don't usually hang out with many humans.
Okay.
It's just like, it's like in Africa, you know, there's that animal, the okapi, that people thought was like a myth for 100 years.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Right? They thought it was like a unicorn. It's like, oh, there's this animal that like the tribes folks talk about, the okapi. Those silly bastards. And then one shows up and they're like, oh shit. Like that. They just usually choose not to be seen, but they were out looking for the spawn of Granny Aching. And because they figured, okay, one of these bitches has got to be a witch, because she's got like 6 sisters, right?
Right.
So yeah, so one of those girls is probably going to end up being a witch, because Granny Aching was, as they call her, the Hag of the Hills. She didn't do proper witching magic, but she was a Terry Pratchett witch in that she was a respected community leader who took care of her people and dispensed wisdom and justice and smoked a foul pipe.
Which is really something. I
It
just
really
love
was.
that whole image so much.
Yep.
Um,
Craggy shepherd woman walking around with her pipe. Oh, God.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a not kind of a flashback, but it's really just Tiffany thinking about it, where she recalls giving her grandma, she won a shepherdess in such a way as to imply that there was some magic involved with that as well.
Or just dumb luck. Shit happens.
Or just dumb luck. But she wins this shepherdess statue and gives it to Granny Aching. And it seems like Granny Aching almost takes offense to it, views it as a sort of curiosity, but it isn't her, and that poor Tiffany didn't really understand that when she gave it to her until she was older, and then felt like maybe she thought when I gave that to her that I was saying you should look like this and you should be this way, and that's not what I meant, but I might have given that impression without realizing it. And later on,
that assessment right up to the point, except that I don't think Granny Aching really took offense. I think she was just kind of puzzled by it. Just like, what the fuck do these people think shepherds look like? I don't think she was like upset at Tiffany in any way. She wasn't like, I don't think she got that far. I think Tiffany was projecting.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, it seemed like Tiffany was more just worried about having done something more than it seemed the evidence pointed to her having done that.
Right.
And later on, she winds up having her showdown with the Quinn. And her grandma pops up in the outfit that the shepherdess had been wearing, except for that she still has her muddy boots on. And yeah. Really, is that meant to be like hey, don't worry, hon. I know that you were like constantly thinking about this, but see, I think it's funny.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
like if this is what people think a shepherd is, okay, and we're gonna try it.
Right.
Yep. She just like, she was being a good grandma and saving the day at the same time. Granny Aching's the best.
Man, that is a lot of multitasking.
Well, being a shepherd's busy work.
I would imagine. But yeah, I just really liked that whole moment because, again, with this self-awareness and introspection, her stopping and observing the way that Granny Aching reacted to what she gave to her, and then thinking about why that might be, and realizing there might have been an effect beyond what she intended, and why is that, and just all of that. I really enjoyed that whole little, like, sub-thought. I don't know what to call that.
Doesn't get it all defensive about it. She's not, but I intended it to be nice. She doesn't, like, feel sorry for herself or whine about it. She's just like, I feel bad about maybe, offending this person that I look up to so much. And I'm gonna think about it a bit and, dwell on it, but I'm not gonna try and defend my actions of, I was only 7. She doesn't do any of that. She just goes like, I did that, and it was probably wrong, and I wish I could undo it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could make up for it. I wish I could talk to her and explain that I didn't mean it that way. And it's just like, oh my god, it's so refreshing.
Yeah. Refreshing is the exact word.
Yes.
So, she winds up teaming up with the Nack McFeagles because they are stealing shit, as they do. And she is a hag, which is apparently a witch, but she doesn't know that and gets rather bent out of shape with them calling her that.
They have funny words for all kinds of stuff, like chickens are coos.
Yes.
And it took me a hot minute to figure that out when they first started talking about stealing some coos. Yup. And, like, yeah, a child of a person or a grandchild of a person is their spawn, and she does not like that word for her at all either. Yep. You're a hag in your spawn. Whatevs. And let's see. What's some of the other good ones? Sheeps or ships.
Yes.
Well, stealing the ships. It's like, you can't steal ships. Oh, shit, you mean sheep. Okay. Yeah, they've just got all these funny little words for stuff.
Yeah, I really like this whole section with how she figures out that they are intimidated by her and just totally uses that to her advantage to get them in line and helping her. And she enlists them. Initially, she's like, can you help me find my brother? And they're just like, I'm sorry, what? And she's like, can you help me steal my brother back? And they're like, oh, yes, of course.
Wait, we're stealing from the Quentin?
The Quentin.
We love stealing from the Quentin. We're famously stealing folk. Boys, what are we famous for? Stealing!
It is so great. I love it so much.
Yeah, it's real good. So yeah, she convinces them, it's like, okay, let's go find my brother, and they're like, well, where's he at? And she's like, well, I don't fucking know, you guys are supposed to know, you're fairies, aren't you? And they're like, okay, fine, we're gonna go check in with Mom. And they end up going, first they go back to Granny Aching's hut place, kind of her burial mound, essentially. Mm-hmm. Like, the place where her house used to be. And there, Tiffany learns some painful truths. And then they go to the Feagles' den in the side of this little, like, hill thing happening. Yeah. It kind of looks like a badger hole.
Yeah. Or a rabbit warren. She thinks later that maybe if she goes back, what if they're not even there?
Yup.
And yeah, she winds up being made. What is it? Kelda.
Yeah.
So this whole thing is like a beehive in that there's like all males born except for like the occasional female, really occasional. And because the female is related to all of the men in the clan, she can't become clan leader because she can't marry her brother. So she has to move on to another clan, and an outsider becomes clan leader of the clan she grew up in, which seems very traumatic to me.
It does, but it's their way.
Yeah, but it's clearly like a huge bummer to her daughter, who's just
Fiona's
unceremoniously booted.
Well, her mom said that Kelda said, it's like, okay, Fionn, it's time for you to choose your bodyguard and go find yourself a new clan, and it's going to be okay. I had to do it too, and it's terribly lonely, but soon you'll have, your entire family around you. So just, suck it up and do what you're supposed to. You cannot marry your brothers. That would be weird. We are not down.
Yeah, thank God that was addressed, because I was wondering what the hell was going on with them. For a second. I was just kind of like, what's this?
So because the Kelda is dying, they need a new Kelda for temporary purposes. Mm-hmm. And because and really it makes sense. If you think about the Nakmak-Feegle without, proper adult supervision and the shenanigans and goings-on that would happen, then you realize that she's absolutely right. You cannot leave those boys alone. So Tiffany gets made Kelda for, however long it takes to get a new Nakmak-Feegle woman into the hive from far away places. And I frankly cannot wait to see what that looks like. Oh wait, I already know, but still, and it's kind of a big deal. They asked the Gonagal, the storyteller and musician of the clan, it's like, has this ever happened before? And he's like, yeah, 3 or 4 times, depending on if you count this one thing. And meanwhile, Fionn is just like, the fuck, this person's not even a Feegle. She's a person. God, what are you even thinking? And they're
what do they call them? They're like big jobs, right?
Big jobs, yep.
That's so great.
She's a giant. And meanwhile, the men they've all got sex on their minds. They're like, well, how do we even with this? Like, if you were to give her a cuddle, you'd have to leave a chalk mark to figure out where you left off last.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
this reminds me of Hagrid and his mom.
Yes.
Don't care for that.
No, it's awkward. So Tiffany figures out, it's like, okay, they're gonna try and make me marry one of these guys, which is frankly not happening. So what can I possibly do? And she thinks up a rather ingenious way to get out of that for a 9-year-old.
Yes. Yeah, she's allowed to pick the day, and she picks a day basically at the end of time.
Yeah.
She's like talks about this myth of this bird that's wearing down a mountain with its beak. And it's like, so when that mountain's worn down, done. Then we'll take care of it.
That is the day I will marry you, Rob, anybody.
Bless her heart. She's a thinking woman.
Yep, and they're like, but that's not a thing. And Rob's like, nope, she named the day. That's the day. We've got a day. Everyone shut up. That's the day.
I love how many times, what's the Daft Willie?
Daft Willie.
He fucks it up over and over and over again with saying shit. And he keeps trying to be like, well, that doesn't really count. And oh my God, Rob is just like, no, it can't. Shut up. Jesus Christ.
There I go, nearly throttling you again.
Oh, that's so good.
He just, yeah. And then, let's see, what was the other one with the name? Not as big as medium-sized Jock, but bigger than Wee Jock.
Yep.
Writing that over and over again. You think he just cut and paste?
I was, I love that you brought that up, because I was genuinely thinking, as a writer, how do you do that? You have to do something that, autofills, right?
Maybe.
Something that, it's maybe you just type, BWJ, and then eventually go back and do a find and replace BWJ, and just type in the whole thing and let it replace it for you.
I think that's brilliant, and if I ever write another book, I will definitely do that. Because I think about that also when I'm reading anything by Jacqueline Carey. She's got a lot of names with accent marks in it because it's fake French, and it's like, man, there's so many Unicode characters in here. What did she do even?
Right. Yeah, I really, that was on my mind in a way that doesn't really it did not warrant it, but I really was kind of preoccupied with just how many times did you type that out? And that was my conclusion that I came to finally. I was just like, okay, it has to be this, which, very well may not be, but if I were him with the kind of technology that we have at our disposal at this time, that's most definitely what I would do.
God, what if you wrote it longhand? Some people do that. Some people write everything longhand.
I write a lot longhand just because it causes me to focus more than being on my computer and getting notifications for things and whatnot interrupting me.
But
Oh yeah, if I have to write anything of length, even in college, I would turn off my Wi-Fi.
yeah,
So it was just me in Word doing it.
That's such a weird the way that you said me in Word doing it. I'm just going to leave that there.
Getting her done. What?
So they head out to find her brother, who has been taken by the Quinn. And it turns out that this Quinn is a woman who used to work in the town, who, like, basically she just got a bad hand. She got dealt a real shitty hand in life.
I think you're confusing two different parts of this story.
Oh no. What is it?
Okay, so they did tell a story about there are a couple stories from the town about various women that happened, but the Queen is definitely not the woman who stole a baby earlier that year.
Oh, I thought she says that was who was standing in front of her.
No, it's definitely because her name was Female Infant, and you would remember that. No, the Queen puts on different faces and stuff, but the woman who had stolen a baby earlier was definitely not the Queen. I can say that with much assurance.
No, I'm sure. Like, I don't disbelieve you, but I'm just trying to figure out how I conflated those things.
Because they're both women that steal babies.
Oh, so okay, so that must be because I think there's a moment where Tiffany's looking at her and says Female Infant Williams or something like that.
Yeah, whatever.
And so she's saying that as I've seen this kind of thing before.
Exactly.
Where I thought she was saying, "Oh my God, it's you."
No.
Okay.
Because the whole point of the Female Infant story was that when all of that happened, Granny was still alive, and she, kind of used her influence with the Baron to say, it's like, okay, we're not going to put this woman to death because she had a nutty. We're just going to pay more attention to her and, like, maybe make sure that she's not having a nutty. She didn't really do anything terrible except that, like, a family had to be without their baby for a while, but she was taking care of it. She just thought she needed a baby.
Right.
So let's just, like, make sure she's okay in her head.
Mm-hmm.
Not alone all the time and stuff. But yeah, but the kind of psychosis was what Tiffany was recognizing, not the actual person.
Okay. Which makes more sense because the way that she said it, it really made me think like, oh, she's saying that's her. But I was like, that's a weird thing to just be like, oh, here's this person that can fucking bend time and space in dreams. And she just seems to have gotten this power from nowhere. So, okay. That makes sense.
The idea is that, like, the Queen is ultimately looking for someone to love because the king left her, and she feels like she needs to mother something, and that's what she feels she needs to do. She's not stealing babies because she's like wants to torture them or eat them up in her oven. She just feels like she needs to be nurturing something, and B sucks at nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ultimately a terrible thing when the Queen gets a hold of a child, but she's not doing it out of malice. She honestly does think that that the kids are better off with her.
Right. Yikes.
Yeah, and that's kind of a thing you get a lot from Terry, where, like, sometimes it's evil for evil's sake, but a lot of the time there's a bigger story going on about it. That said, the Queen is totally being a selfish a-hole and cannot be allowed to get away with this shit. It needs to be shown that, don't fucking come here with your bullshit. Even
Right.
though you think you're better at this than the rest of us, that doesn't mean that you have the right to do this crap. And yeah, it's there's just so many layers. Ah, God. Well, there's like I said at the beginning, I get a lot of my morality from thinking about Terry Pratchett stories, and it's like, okay, so just because you think that this is going to be better ultimately doesn't mean it's okay to hurt people.
Right.
Like you have to, you can't just like take charge of other people's kids. You have to maybe like help their parents be better at parenting or something. You have
Right.
to like. You have to be a community leader, not a community fascist.
Yeah, I like that. Community fascist.
Yep. So, but yeah. So Tiffany and the Nakmak Feagle figure out that it's like, okay, we got to find our way into the Queen's land, and so they go to a place that kind of feels magic-y.
Mm-hmm.
They call it Old Man's Forge, and it's like no one knows why it's there. It's been there forever, and it's just like some weird rocks in a particular shape, and it forms kind of a doorway thing. And so she's like, oh yeah, all I gotta do is go through this weird magic-y feeling doorway thing. And she does it, and she closes her eyes, and nothing fucking happens.
Yep.
And it's just like, okay, so nah, that doesn't make sense. It can't just be magic because people will just like wander in all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I have to like know it is there. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna believe real hard. Yeah! And she walks through it, and nothing fucking happens. And it's like, okay, so I'm believing as hard as I can, but like I can't make myself really believe, because you really can't. I mean, you can say you believe in something, but you can't believe in your heart without your body just kind of doing that.
Yeah.
It either believes or it doesn't. It's a binary. You can't try to believe anything. You can think about it, but you can't try to believe.
That's always been something that bothered me in a lot of different stories. It's like, you just have to believe, and then all of a sudden it would, and I would be, even as a kid, was just like, that's not how that goes, though.
Yeah, it's like I can't make myself believe in something. I'm gonna doubt automatically.
Yeah.
The doubt just happens. And telling kids that, like, the power of belief is the thing that's gonna get you there, that's some church-controlling bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they get your money, kids. Believe with your dollars. That'll give you faith. Anyway, so then she stops and she thinks about it, and she starts looking at the doorway, and she sees that if you look at it and think about it, time functions a little weird around that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So she looks at it, she sees some birds flying by, and they fly through, like, past it wrong. She can see them on either side of the doorway at one point because time is warped there in some fashion. And once she has that proof in her head that shit's weird about the door, then she can actually believe in her soul that shit's weird about the door and walks through it, and then she's in the Queen's Land.
And the Queen's Land is a hot mess.
Yeah, it's a cold mess, actually. There's fucking snow everywhere.
Yeah, I guess it depends, because at one point it does get really hot, but it's a dream. Because her frog friend is like, no, I'm freezing. Close your damn sweater.
Yeah, put me back in your goddamn apron.
Mm-hmm.
Daft bint. Anyway. So yeah, the Queen's place is very cold, and that's a reflection of her feelings about being rejected by the king, apparently. They psychoanalyze the Queen all the time. It's kind of funny. You never want a Nakmak Feeble to be freaking psychoanalyzed. So, yeah, it's super cold there, and the landscape looks rather hastily done. Like, if you look at a tree, it'll look like a tree, but it feels like it's trying to look at it like a tree because you're looking at it.
Right.
And all the other trees that you're not looking at are making less of an effort.
I really enjoyed that description, and I enjoy later at when Tiffany is saying, oh, it makes sense that everything is covered with snow, because if I wanted to make a whole fake land but not have a lot of effort put into it, covering everything with snow makes it all really indistinct and samey, and that's just super easy.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to You don't have to put a lot of effort into a snowy landscape because everything's smooth. All the lines are either straight or rounded. There aren't any colors. It's the easiest to, like, if I was going to draw a picture of a snowy landscape, I would draw a line across. I draw a line across my screen because I think in terms of computers now. I get in GAMP. I put a line across my screen. I cover the color, the top half kind of sky blue. Bam, snowy landscape.
Hey.
Done. 2 clicks. And this is a 2-click landscape, so yeah, makes sense.
And there are these things called dromes that feed. It's an interesting thing because, like, there are a lot of creatures that you read about that feed on fear, but these feed on you having a good time.
Yep.
And so they lock you, if they can, in an endless cycle of a dream of you having the time of your life and feed off of that until you die of starvation, and then they just eat you.
Oh, yeah. They let you get a bit runny first, but yeah, pretty much.
Oh my god, I forgot about that part.
Mm-hmm.
That's my, that was gross.
Yeah.
It's messed up, guys.
And she does the kind of Persephone thing where it's like you can't eat anything in the dream because then you'll be trapped in the dream on some level forever.
Mm-hmm.
Which I always find that to be a really, it for some reason it rings really true to me that, like, eating things in a place that will trap you is a bad idea. I've always enjoyed that trope in mythologies. And she runs into a bunch of drones in this story. The first one seems very convincing. She wakes up in her own bed and she's like, oh my god, this whole Wentworth thing was just a dream, whatever. I'll just go downstairs and have breakfast with Ma. Thank goodness it was, none of that's happening. Good. And she does, and everything's very normal, except that, like, some weird stuff's happening. Just like things jiggle or vibrate or aren't quite right.
I was so fucking proud of myself because Ratbag runs by her and rubs up against her and is really happy to see her. And I was like, that Ratbag did not strike me as an affectionate cat. Something is weird here. And that was the exact thing that gets pointed out later when she's like, stops and thinks about it and is like, wait a second. And I was like, yes! I felt very, very proud of myself.
You should.
Poor Ratbag. What a fucking name.
Oh, Terry Pratchett is famous for giving cats some, like, fucked up names. There's one in the other witch books named Grebo. Oh god, Grebo's so good.
Grebo?
Grebo.
Is that from something? Like,
it's from Terry Pratchett. It's the cat's fucking name. It sounds like a lot of other names that, like, Greedo is the alien in Star Wars
right.
that Han shoots in the cantina, and there's like a lot of names that sound like that, but I think Grebo might be the only Grebo. I don't know, but everyone write in and tell me about your Grebos.
Yeah, I just like the whole thing of constantly walking into things and like you should know in one way after this happens like 3 times in a row that this is also a dream, but also this land is super unpredictable, so there is reason to kind of stop and ask. I really liked how off balance that kept me.
Yeah. That at any moment you could be thrown into, like, a completely different situation, and figuring out how to get out of it is going to be different every fucking time. And sometimes it's not even, like, there's no obvious answer, and the way out is inside your head.
Yeah, that's the other thing. And what's the guy who flies on a falcon?
Oh, Hamish the Aviator.
Hamish, that's the one.
He's so wonderful.
And he says sometimes the way out is in your own head. And I enjoyed that also.
Yup.
So when she finally has the showdown with the Queen, she winds up calling up Thunder and Lightning, who were her grandmother's dogs, who are made of electricity.
Well, they are now.
Which is pretty much the raddest thing ever. It's just, I mean, how badass is that? I love it. It's like she's got Pokemon at her beck and call. And it's just like, you know what I need right now? An Electabuzz. Get over here, buddy.
Yep. And because you've spent the entire, second half of the book in a world built on dreams and weird magic, and she kind of realizes along the way that she can kind of have whatever she wants as far as allies go. Then, it doesn't feel like Deus Ex Machina just because, Granny shows up and her dogs and stuff. It just feels like, well, yeah, of course she can have those things. She's just come from fairy fucking land.
Right.
Yeah, she can have the help she needs. But the help the help does things to the Queen, but it's mostly her staring the bitch down.
Yeah.
That really wins the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you have to, witches do things. They take care of things. And they speak for those who have no voices, and it's just such an empowering book. I find it so wonderful.
Yeah, that final confrontation was very satisfying. And I just, the whole thing, not only electric dogs, but then Granny Aching actually being there. And basically, thumbs upping her. But it's just a nod. And that's the equivalent of her giving, a standing ovation.
Yeah. It's the best prize anyone on the chalk could get.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, God. So good.
That'll do.
And once the Queen is, defeated and sent packing, and knows that these hills are defended, and you best not step, bitch, because there will always be a witch here to guard the borders. And Tiffany has to go back to her life, but, first we get a visit from Miss Tick and some friends.
Oh, wait. Before even them, I completely forgot about the Baron's son.
Oh, yeah, Roland.
Who is awful.
Yeah, he's fairly awful.
And he's getting credit for, this whole thing, which I felt some kind of way about, but it very quickly turns out that Tiffany could give a shit. Right. She's just like, I did what I needed to do, and if you want to take credit, that's fine. That's on you, that you have to live with taking credit for something you didn't do.
And he's like, I didn't mean to, but they all assumed, and you let them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I let them.
And she basically is like, well, get out of my face. And he's like, well, you can't talk to me that way. And she tells one of the buckets to fill itself. And he does not know that the Knack McFeagles are super fast. And they run and fill the bucket for her so as to make it appear that she has pretty sick-ass powers and he better watch his fucking back. Which was great. And I enjoyed every second of that.
The secret of magic is when not to use it.
Yep.
You don't need to use magic. You got yourself some little blue men.
Yeah, I really love that, because that's just one of those things, as a kid, whenever you, imagine getting superpowers and what that would be like, number one on your list is getting to fuck with people who have been fucking with you.
Yep.
And I really like that she doesn't actually fuck with him. she just fucks with him a little bit. You know what I mean?
Well, he's trying to be a rich bastard, a rich, powerful bastard. And in case you can't tell from this little scene, Terry has a lot to say about class and privilege. And the idea is, like, folks is folks, and if you're gonna try and push your weight around because of how you were born, then you're gonna get the shit scared out of you, just saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, people who think and people who use their brains and learn things and all of that are always going to have an edge and should be respected just as much as people who were born right, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
God, fuck English class systems.
Okay, but then, yes, the visit from the witches.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about this part.
Okay, so once everything's settled and there's no more fucking work to be done, that's when the witches show up to save the day.
Yeah, that is true, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. They're here to, like, roll into the rescue, and there is no rescue to be had. And Miss Tick is, like, trying to say stuff, and Granny just, like, cuts her off. Or at least I think she does. It's been about a year since I read it last. I didn't get to this part on my reread. And Granny's just like, okay, let's just comb through your head and see what the fuck went down.
Yeah, and just basically is looking at nothing but reciting things that happened based on, like, where she's looking, kind of.
Yeah.
And she finally gets to sort of the end of the tale and turns and asks Tiffany who she got help from. And Tiffany says, I don't ask you your business. Which Miss Tick is just scandalized by.
Absolutely scandalized.
And it's like, this is the most famous. And she's like, no, you know what? She's right. I was being kind of a nosy bitch right there.
Yep.
It's fine.
Granny respects people who know their own mind.
Yep. And, yeah, and Granny, like, I had heard of Granny Weatherwax, but only because of Smash Fiction.
Ah, yeah, I listened to that one. That was awesome.
And I, like, just love that name so much.
Mm-hmm.
Granny Weatherwax.
So Granny is an honorific. She was never married, never had children, never had grandchildren. Her given name, get ready for this, is Esmeralda.
Ooh.
It's so good.
Esmeralda Weatherwax.
I know, right?
Goodness.
As much as, like, if I was ever to have kids, which I'm kind of past my point for, but if I was ever to have a daughter, I would not want to do to her what was done to me, but I would seriously consider it. Like, okay, I'm just gonna give you an overblown name, and we'll call you Esme, and it'll be fine.
Man, yeah, that's pretty good.
Right?
Um,
And Nanny Og is also there. Nanny Og you don't get a lot of, but she's fantastic. And her first name is Gintha.
Gintha.
Yes!
Wow.
Yeah. Gintha Og.
One step away from Gunta. Which is what my mother used to call herself because she's a massage therapist and she would have to, like, crack people's bones and whatnot.
Nice.
So she would call herself Gunta bitch.
Down.
Is she the one that has a face like an apple that's been let sit too long?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Nanny Og is a broad. She's an old broad. She likes a drink. She likes another drink. She likes to sing off-colored songs at the top of her voice after yet another drink.
Excellent.
Yeah, her favorites are, let's see, the wizard's staff has a knob at the end, and a hedgehog cannot be buggered at all. And yeah, it's just a song that's like a list of animals and how you can bugger them, but the hedgehog cannot be buggered, apparently. She's an old broad. She's fantastic. And yeah, Granny is not an old broad. She's hard as diamonds and will fuck your shit up with her words. But they're best friends, and it's so wonderful.
Oh, and wasn't there this whole thing where Miss Tick had said to Tiffany that she needed to find which school? And Tiffany thinks that this is like a literal place like Hogwarts that she can go and find the train to get on and go. And finally realizes, oh, you were being metaphorical, weren't you? Bless her. Because she reads a lot, but she doesn't hear words said out loud, so she doesn't know what they're supposed to sound like. And I feel you on that one, Tiffany, as a voracious reader who was also an only child and did not say these things to anyone until I was in school and being made fun of because I pronounced it chaos. I know very well.
I, too, have this thing. In fact, okay, so I go to a lot of conventions. I'm sure everyone's aware by now. In the nerd community, in the geek nerd community at conventions and things, because so many of us read so much and don't necessarily get to talk about these things in other settings, because in your work life you don't get to talk about, how you've read all 5 Game of Thrones books and the history and stuff like that. You don't get to say these words out loud very much. It's considered polite to correct someone's pronunciation in the geek community.
I see, this is why I'm part of it.
Yep.
Because my fucking pedantic mind is welcome.
You, next Thanksgiving, should come to my convention and be on panels.
I wish.
Don't you want to be in Los Angeles for November?
I just want to be able to do more for the show, but it's just so expensive to travel.
Well,
and I'm going to the LeakyCon convention in Dallas in August, and I'm also trying to go to Philly for the Philly Podcast Festival.
Awesome.
So I already have a credit card that is practically smoking. And I'm looking at having to rebuild an entire website due to hackers.
Oh, fuck hackers, yeah.
I'm so irritated. Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. Let's talk about cheese. And cheese is good.
Yeah, Tiffany's great at cheese.
And Mistress Weatherwax is saying, well, do you know anything about medicine? Midwifery?
Deliver lambs all night long.
I love her. I saw my brother being born. It didn't look too difficult. Oh, didn't it? Okay.
Well, not from where you were standing. Jeez.
Right?
Not from that angle.
Oh my god, I just can't. I accidentally caught a piece of an informational video of a baby being born, and I just couldn't do it. Nope. It's just not right. It's not right. That shouldn't be how it goes.
When I thought I was going to be a person that had children, that I was a person that would gestate and, have living beings leap from my flesh, I was like, okay, so I'm not pregnant yet, but can I schedule my C-section now?
Yeah, it's become much more common, actually, for people to just schedule it and just be like, nope, I just want to have it done.
Yeah, just have it removed.
Yep.
And, I hear a lot of people, it's like, oh no, it's so much harder to recover from. And then I talk to some women who gave natural birth and hear the things that that they don't talk about, in public, in the way that we don't talk about our period. They don't talk about, stitches and episiotomies and just,
Okay.
the things that happen and, the care that you have to do after giving birth when, you urinate 2 inches away from an open wound.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if anyone has ever grazed anything on their nether regions and had to take a pee afterward, but it is the worst pain in the world.
Oh my god.
When I got bit by a dog a few months ago, I was trying to find out if I could take a bath with my stitches, and I Googled, can I take a bath with my stitches? And it was all women who had just given birth. And all of the answers were like, my doctor told me that I wasn't able to take a bath for at least a month. And I was just reading them just like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Even when it's over, it's not over.
It's never over. Yeah. No, my little brother was an 11.5-pound baby. And I'm adopted, so, you know, like nothing to do with me technically, but my ma was like, she would be at, like, our family is huge. It's just freaking Irish Catholic and huge. So there were always baby showers, lots and lots of baby showers. And they would always play the game, oh, who had the biggest baby? And my mom would just be like, yeah, that'd be me. Don't even ask. And everyone else in the room who knew would just nod. It's like, yeah, big head on that kid. Had to break his collarbone to get him out.
Jesus.
Yeah, 11.5 fucking pounds. It's practically
Absolutely fucking not.
Yeah, and one of the women said, like, turned to my mom one time and was just like, so, you can do a paint can now, can't you?
Oh my God.
And Mom was like, yeah, pretty much. But,
I am changing the subject.
Hey, once you get your hysterectomy, which every woman in my family does, they can just make you new again.
Make you new again?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
All of my aunts, after they get their hysterectomies, they're like, so did the doctor offer you the thing? And they're like, yeah, I'm like 16 down there again.
What?
Yup.
Okay, I'm not doing it. I'm not going down this road, guys.
Cut it out
If you want to know, you go ahead and DM bitches. So I'm looking forward to hearing about the many DMs that she gets regarding this subject.
Sorry, guys, I took it to a weird place, but that's my thing.
Oh, God. All right, so it ends with the witches telling Tiffany that she's a little too young now, but she can go to witch school after all. That there's a place in the mountains. There is actually some place to go. They treat her like witch school when she asks about it, but then it turns out they're totally witch school, so I don't know why they behaved that way.
Because it's not like a regular school, it's more like an apprenticeship.
But they know what she means. Come on.
They know that calling it that is kind of silly, and then they do all kind of turn on Mystic, and it's like, did you put this crap in her head? It's like, seriously?
Mystic. She seems like a little bit of a troublemaker. A little bit.
So all witches are know-it-alls, but even amongst the know-it-alls, Mystic is a know-it-all.
Damn.
Yeah.
And Tiffany she's like, I don't have to dance naked or anything, do I? And Weatherwax is like, no, of course not. No cackling, no houses made of sweets, no dancing. And Mrs. Ogg is like, unless you want to. Which, you know, it's totally cool if you want to.
Mrs. Ogg also had like 7 husbands.
I love it.
Got, like,
do they live like longer? Are they?
No, they live a normal human lifespan.
Okay.
She just had a lot of husbands. Sometimes they never say it quite outright, but some of the husbands might have been like at the same time. So she's mine. She's mine. She's my witch. She sounds right up my alley. Oh yeah, you're gonna love her. I really hope you read more witch books. And
we find out that the bones of the hills are flint.
Yep.
So
it's rock there is other than diamonds.
Hard and sharp and useful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. The thing about witchcraft is that it's not like school at all. First, you get the test, and then afterward, you spend years finding out how you passed it. It's a bit like life in that respect. I like that a lot.
Yeah. It's kind of so true. Like, anytime you do something that, like, you had no idea you could pull off, and then you think, how the fuck did I pull that off? And then you spend the next couple of years finding, it's like, oh shit, I'm, like, good at stuff.
Right.
How can I do that on command?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh man, have you ever like done something perfectly the first time and then you can't get it right after that?
All the fucking time.
Oh, that drives me fucking batty. I hate it. And then you try and be like, all right, well, when I first did it, I wasn't really caring that much because I figured I'd get it wrong. So let me try and pretend not to care. Will it come back? Of course it doesn't come back. That's not how it works.
Believing, you can't fool your mind.
Yep.
Yeah. You can pretend to believe something. You can pretend to believe it with all your heart. Again, churches. But unless you have it inside you, it's not. There's part of you that's not fooled. You know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the same way with this. It's like, oh yeah, if I don't think about this pool shot or this sewing thing I'm doing, or then it'll just happen. I'll just do it by instinct. And it's like, no, you can't fool yourself into ignoring that you're thinking about it.
Yeah, which it would be awesome if you could. How easy would that be? That would be lovely. But no.
Someday we'll invent selective attention that is on command.
I wish.
So yeah, actually, because I interrupted you earlier and was like, oh, first it's the bear and son, and he actually comes up later. I got them out of order. My apologies.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, he happened while they were in Fairyland. He had been mentioned earlier in the narrative.
Because of the old woman that got killed in the snow. That was a terrible story, and I hated it so much.
Yeah, but it's important because that shit happens.
Yep. I just hated it. Ugh.
And it was a defining moment for Tiffany, because then she's like, well, if that's what you think a witch does, then I'm going to be a witch so that shit doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And so she does. Oh, gosh, she's so my favorite.
Yeah, she's pretty good. I enjoy her. So yeah, overall, 2 thumbs up. Read this book. Have a good time. Prepare your ear for some strong accents.
Yes.
And, generally just be ready for a good time. It's just so much fun. And I really hope that I have some more time to enjoy things just for the sake of them and not necessarily for the show coming up. And if I have the time, I will definitely start on another one of these.
Well, if you need more of them, I have them. And I don't think so. We kind of glossed over how delightfully silly a lot of this crap is. So go in expecting a lot of accents, but also go in just expecting things to be really goofy and weird places.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Hamish the aviator jumps off the bird, and she had been telling him about the idea of a parachute and that he could use that so that he doesn't careen into the ground and drill in, because he had been using wings before that made him spin. And he jumps off, and what has he found as his parachute? Oh, it's a pair of Tiffany's bloomers.
Yep.
Totally floating down in her underpants.
They're my best pants.
Yeah.
And he cut all the lace off them, and she's bummed because she doesn't have a lot of unnecessary frills on clothing or a lot of unnecessary items in her home. And it was one of the few things she had that didn't absolutely need to be there. And he cut it off, and now she's just like, he says, you can sew it right back on again. And she's like, no, you know what, you keep them. It's fine now. I'm not doing that.
I love that he saved it for her, though. It's like,
Right.
oh, she might want this lace. I should tuck it away somewhere.
Well, thank you so much for doing this book with me. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. Even though I do tend to take things to the weird place. Money is always lecturing me on.
Listen, Money has no room to talk because he takes things to super weird places himself. So.
I agree, but I have to let him lecture me on something, and it's that and the tendency to say But usually that's just when I need him to not talk so that I can talk. So I'll try to preface it with an
Oh, bless him.
I'll maybe start prefacing it with something else, like, hey, shut up!
That's the one. That's the winner in my book. It's the most subtle, probably. Go with that.
We have a delicate friendship, you can tell.
Well, thank you so much, everybody who's been listening and keeping up with the show. The book for next month is Why I No Longer Talk to White People About Race by Rennie Edo-Lodge. And I will be hosting that show with Roshan. So that will be fun. Looking forward to this one. It's I think probably the first book I've done that's like a nonfiction.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. How about that?
I'm going to buy it right now. I'm super stoked for that. Time to get woke, people.
Get woke. Yeah, and if you want to buy it, you can use my Amazon link, which I will be posting in the show notes for this episode. So if you're interested in reading along, it's a short audiobook. It's only like 5 hours, which I was shocked by. And I'll be posting the link in the show notes. So check that out. Support the show by doing that. And of course, leave a review on iTunes if you've been listening and have enjoyed what we're doing here at Unspoiled Book Club. And you can also join us on the Facebook page for the book club. Facebook.com/groups/unspoiledbookclub is the one.
Very much so. And hey, cats and kittens, if you're using that Amazon link and you have to go back to her website every time in order to find it, save yourself a step and just click on the Amazon link and then bookmark it in your computer. Instead of bookmarking regular Amazon, bookmark Natasha Amazon.
Do it.
Every time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you wind up buying. If you use a link that I gave you to get to Amazon at all, whatever you buy on that visit counts as credit toward my account. So you don't have to buy the book if you use that link and you follow it through and then wind up buying a set of dish pans. I don't know.
Yeah, I bought shoes for my girlfriend for Christmas on the Amazon link.
Yay!
I bought and tied. Yep.
Thank you. It's appreciated. It really does add up. When I first started it and they were like, you get 2% of every sale, I was like, the fuck? But then it turns out that you get 2%, and then after like 15 sales, you get 3%, and then after 40 sales, you get 4%, and it goes up and up and up until eventually, I think you get up to 7% is the highest it can go. But it's cumulative. So the more people do it, the more I wind up making, not just because of it compounds on itself. So yeah,
it's one of the few, what are they called? Sponsors that pays in a realistic way. Like we say Amazon on the site all the time, but who's to say how far that reaches? But with this, they have an actual tracking method. It's one of the most ingenious things that I've ever heard of as far as a sponsorship program, because they don't have to like sit there and cut you a check for every time you say Amazon. No, they cut you a check for every time someone clicks on Amazon. I know the guy that invented it, and like he should seriously be getting kickbacks for it. It's ridiculously good idea.
Well, guys, listen to bitches. Do that.
Do the thing. Make yourself a link.
And read Why I No Longer Talk to White People About Race. And we will see you here next month. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Peace.
Wild Network podcast.